It's a dichotomy, and it's an Achilles heel of our system. And that is this artificial divide between what we call operations and program. So, and what does this mean? This means that basically, you have agencies like the World Food Program, for instance, that they are, I mean, their DNA is logistics. I mean, their DNA is that the so-called program, the impact, the delivery is very much linked to their supply chain and the planning and the whole logistics behind it. But for a lot of other agencies, there is this dichotomy. When you enter a meeting of like UN representatives, and you compare that to going into a meeting with VPs of a large multinational, and we know that the VPs around the table, the one thing they know and unites them is their knowledge to the detail of the balance sheet of the company. And what does this mean? The balance sheet connects the product, the end product, and the stakeholders, the shareholders of the company. And that's what it's all about. So you have to understand the production process, the branding process, the entire supply chain. Now, if you do that in the UN, often what you are confronted with is, eyes rolling over, people immediately going, oh my God, operations, we don't have time for that. That's admin. And operations isn't admin. And that's the big problem. And that is a cultural thing in the UN that over time has been, has really ingrained. There is this kind of two-class system as well, two-speed system, where those on the so-called program side, those are the ones that think strategically, right? They are up there, the big strategies and how we're going to save lives and how are we going to make the world a better place. And the so-called admin side that needs to be ingrained like a clockwork is often brushed aside as admin, as bureaucracy, and as more hampering and not being connected. So if I have my strategic results that I want to show to the world that I'm reducing maternal mortality, this example, in 3 years, I need to make sure before I even say that, what does it take for me operationally to get there? How long does it take to have a procurement process? How long does it take for me to train people in a way that they can respond efficiently? And that is often missing. So when you then have this kind of confrontation between those that design the programs and then the operations people that come with these timelines, there is then obviously there's often a clash between those, and then it doesn't work. And that is, for me, it's a very simple example, but you can use that across the board. Again, there are agencies that have smelled the coffee on this. They know that this is their bread and butter. But what's driving their adaptation to this is the resources that fund them. And when you see when you see organizations like UNICEF, for instance, UNICEF, the large part of its core funding comes from private donors, comes from the larger public, comes from those that want to see results. And other agencies do not function that way. Their main donor source, their main resources are member states. And then you see often, different speeds in different agencies. What's happening there is that because we are moving into an environment where we need to be working as a UN much better together, you have all of a sudden a multi-speed system in the system where all of a sudden your efficiency becomes your market value. And that becomes then very difficult to tune when we want to talk about doing stuff together. First of all, those that are right now working in the UN need to smell that coffee, need to develop that courage to speak up, the guts to say things need to change. The problem that we are having is that these administrations, what they also install is this kind of making sure there is a certain kind of conservatism, because we do not want to rock the boat too much, because that means instability. And what does that induce? A certain kind of fear and a certain kind of complacency. When you see inefficiencies, you let them happen. that courage needs to be instilled in our current staff, in the future generations of our organization, and those that are there. I'm not saying that we need to, get rid of a lot of people. Naturally, by attrition and by, looking at the technological revolution that's going on, that's been catalyzed by the pandemic, you will see an enormous change in the next coming years, also in the private sector, in terms of how we manage premises, in terms of how we need premises, on all the overhead costs that will have to be revisited. And that includes also staffing. I mean, we know that we can be much more efficient nowadays without so many staff. And that's a very painful discussion to have, especially in an environment like the UN. Efficiency has a price. And I'm not so sure whether the UN and the way the UN is being set up, has been created, is ready for that price to be paid. But one thing is sure, without courage and guts to speak up and embrace what is in front of us, the reality of the world that we are facing, we are risking as the UN to take a backseat, to be pushed in the backseat, because we are not able to provide the solutions that are adapted and are needed in the current world.